we're on, but I don't know if we're recording because we're using something completely different to record this episode.
Yeah, brand new platform.
Yeah, which hopefully nobody knows. Like, hopefully this is seamless and that we haven't just made a horrible, horrible mistake. And if you're listening to this, then I'm guessing that we didn't make a horrible, horrible mistake, because that means that we have actually succeeded in recording using this new software, which, as is, if you tuned in last week, you will know I have no free time right now. So at this point, I am winging it. Just like how I live my life.
And who was winging it?
I am Phil Royle. I am logged into Ed's account, so hopefully our names appear right on the screen as well, which you could see at youtube.com/@thewhatcar if all goes well. I don't know, I'm here, and people have paid me for a while to do automotive content, and now I'm doing this automotive content. Or I guess I'm paying myself? I don't know how this works.
Well, that's the dream, but...
Yeah, hopefully my checks don't bounce.
Ed Sanchez, likewise, long-timer in the automotive industry in one form or another. Currently a podcaster with Phil, experimenting with the brave new world of technology and all of the benefits thereof, hopefully. And so here we are for yet another episode.
Yeah. So, all right, there's an article that we were going to talk about last week. And I think you kind of alluded to it last week. And we decided not to talk about it. Instead, we decided to bump it to this week, because this week I am once again somewhere else in America. And so we're going to just talk about this article that appeared on Wired. Now, true to form, I haven't read it. So I'm going to require you to kind of walk me through this. But the gist of it seems to be, are EVs too powerful? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's written by this guy.
What kind of crazy talk is this?
Well, this is written by a guy named Jason Barlow. I guess he's kind of a freelance contributor. I don't know exactly what his credentials or background is. He claims he's been doing kind of similar to us, automotive journalism content for a while. So he's had more access to exotic cars than we have, evidently. He claims to have driven Lotus Evija, Pininfarina Battista, Rimac Nevera, so forth. Some very fast and powerful EVs. I don't know if he's driven the Yangwang U9 Extreme, but anyway, maybe that'll be the follow-up. So anyway, he kind of touched on something that we've discussed before, that basically he thinks there's been too much of an emphasis on performance with EVs, and performance being just the raw, like 0 to 60, pin you back in your seat, chase to, 1,000+ horsepower. And he's like, that's the wrong priority right now. So he basically says, the quote I pulled from this that I think is kind of the crux of all this is, he says, "Isn't the speed at which you can recharge more meaningful in the real world than the speed at which you can hit 60? So we're here to unpack that a little bit today. And I know you have particular feelings about this. So.
Well, I have said in the past, it's easy to make an EV go fast. And that I don't need a Cadillac Escalade that does 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. I need a Cadillac Escalade with 3 rows to get the kids to school back. I don't need outright acceleration. That said, when I was testing all the Hellcat models, and I had the Durango Hellcat, and I put the whole family in there, and it could do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds or whatever it was, 2.9 seconds. Like, that was great. But it was a party trick. And it was a party trick that I did at every traffic light for the time that I was testing the vehicle.
Yeah.
If it were my own vehicle, I wouldn't do it. I would do it a couple times, and then you'd be like, all right, let's just drive at this point. Let's put everybody in the vehicle.
Like normal people, yeah.
Yeah, so I get it. And I get that supercars should go fast. That is where you want to push those limits. And this also, that quote that you pulled also kind of ties back to what we've covered this before. You're a Model 3 owner, and you're kind of the EV enthusiast of the two of us.
Relatively speaking, yeah.
Yeah. So when I started down this kind of paying attention to EVs 5-something years ago, all that I heard of was range anxiety. And within the first year, I realized range anxiety was a bogus. It was a red herring. The reality was charging anxiety. Can you charge? How fast can you charge? Where can you charge? And then the more EVs that I tested, the more I realized, yeah, these things can go fast, but what's the point? And this comes from my background is motorsports, where I race. I have driven a lot of supercars. I've driven a lot of modified cars that can go very fast. And I guess that party trick wore off on me. I'd prefer to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow in traffic. I don't know. What fun is it having like a Lamborghini and then you're just commuting doing 35 miles an hour with everybody else? There's really no point.
But where you live, you probably see that a lot. So
yeah. So I get that. And as time has kind of gone on, I think go back to the Wayback Machine. And there was a time where this needed to happen. When the Model S came out, EVs were they were a joke, essentially. They didn't go anywhere. They didn't go anywhere fast. You couldn't recharge them. You couldn't do anything. So Tesla came along and proved a point. And they proved that EVs can be fast and more than a golf cart. But now, I think this article kind of says, I think also what I've kind of been saying for a little bit, in that the industry's matured. EVs are not what they were 10 years ago. This is a very different world. And that we don't need that party trick anymore. I would much prefer that you spend the time building efficiency and building range efficiency and charging efficiency versus building a vehicle that can go
0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat.
Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah.
What is absolutely the point other than, okay, you've got a plaid model. That's great. You've got BMW's got its M5s, M3s. There's always a world for that. But the base one, if you could get significantly more range by putting the development into the efficiency of the motors and the discharge cycle of the battery, and you could extend the range, then do that. That's the technology that we need to progress with. I've been told that that's not the case, that you can have your cake and eat it too. I don't believe that. Although Lucid would disagree with it.
Well, I mean, the Lucid Air pure rear wheel drive is currently until next year, the most efficient EV you can buy. And it's a 4,000 plus pound, pretty good sized sedan, can do 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. Pretty quick in most people's books.
It's the outlier though, because it dethroned, as far as I'm aware, it dethroned the previous efficiency champ, which was the Ioniq. It was the Hyundai Ioniq.
Ioniq 6.
No,
the sedan.
It was remember the Ioniq that had the Ioniq,
the little
ICE,
the
hybrid, plug-in, and EV. That was the range champ up until the Lucid came. Not range champ, efficiency champ.
Like efficiency, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think, I don't know if the Model 3 kind of knocked that off, but I think until the Air Pure rear-wheel drive came out, the Model 3 was the efficiency champ. If you're curious, you can go on to fueleconomy.gov and do a side-by-side comparison that has all those stats. But I want to say I could do it right now. I want to say the combined MPGE, again, your favorite measurement of efficiency, because
Love MPGE.
So scientific.
It's so applicable to EVs.
I believe, I don't know if this is combined or like the city rating. I think the Lucid Air Pure is 141 or something. It's way up there. And mine, when I bought it, was like 132, which I bought mine before the Air Pure came out. So at the time, mine was the efficiency champ. And I think at that point, the original Ioniq, I think might have been discontinued. So I don't know if that was like even in the running. Anyway, long story short, I mean, I think both the Air Pure and the Model 3 prove that you can have a pretty quick, fun to drive vehicle that's not an energy hog, that's still, by, objective, measurements, pretty efficient. So I guess my question is, and kind of where I want to go with this, is where do you draw that line of what the priorities should be? And I have an idea. This may be a little arbitrary. I would say, unless, I'd say under like 100,000 is just focus on efficiency and everyday livability. So for the 0 to 60 in 2 point whatever, 100,000 plus, who cares? They're kind of in their own class of, I wouldn't really call that exotic anymore, because you blow that much on a full size truck anymore. But
Yeah.
just let the high end of the market chase the really, like, eye popping, horsepower and acceleration figures, all that. I think what the mass market wants, I don't think anyone, both of us are old enough to have lived through kind of, I'd say, the tail end of the malaise era of automaking, which I would say was late 70s to like mid 80s, where, you had, 5-liter V8s making 130 horsepower and just really stupid, like, relative efficiency for displacement and all that, where you had these relatively large engines that made hardly any power. And it was just, and they weren't really that particularly fuel efficient. And it was just not a great era. I don't think globally, but especially in the US, because of all the smog and the I don't know if cafe was even a thing then, but there's a big emphasis on fuel efficiency because the country had just gone through the oil crisis and all that. I don't think anyone wants a 14-second 0 to 60 car anymore. I think that would just sit on lots and gather dust. To me, and maybe this may seem kind of arbitrary, but I think the level at which a car feels pretty peppy, and I'd probably be happy driving as a daily driver, is 7 seconds 0 to 60.
That's actually,
in fact, I remember,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. It's somewhere between 7 and 8 seconds is a peppy car.
And I was, I would say, mid to late 90s, 7 seconds was actually fairly impressive for a mainstream car. Now, if you were talking Ferrari Corvette, it's like, meh. But, for your mainstream sedan, even some of the more premium models, 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, like, wow, that's pretty quick. And I think even today, when I get in a car that's has about that level of acceleration, it's like, oh, this thing's pretty peppy. So I think that would be at a level that would satisfy, I think, the majority of car buyers. So if it could deliver, I want to say, kind of as a baseline, 300 miles of range, maintain good battery health through, let's say 100,000 miles, have, comfortable accommodations for 4 to 5 people, decent cargo space, a decent infotainment system. I mean, I think that's what most people are looking for. And some people say, well, you already have the Chevy Bolt and the Hyundai Kona EV, maybe the lower level Ioniq 5. I mean, so there are cars out there in that range that kind of meet that. But you don't, that's not the ones you read about and hear about. You hear about the Ioniq 5N and the, the EV6 GT and the Plaid and the, Model 3 Performance. Those are the ones that they like handing out to journalists and they get all the headlines and everything. But
they seem to put a lot of the, the flashbang wow goes into the acceleration. And so they put a lot of development into the acceleration. And where they need to be putting a lot of this is into the charging curve and the voltage pack, the voltage of the pack, to maximize charging efficiency. And I feel like the cars that you mentioned, like the Bolt and the Kona, they don't really do that. Those are the worst of every world. Those are
worst or best.
Well, they don't accelerate fast, and they don't have the fast charging that you might get on some of the other vehicles. They're
not objectively bad. They're just like kind of
meh.
I guess meh. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they need to concentrate on, for your mainstream, it's the charging that needs to be concentrated on. And that...
So that actually gets me kind of way down on the talking points is I feel maybe the bigger obstacle for EV adoption for a lot of people is the charging rather than the cars themselves.
Almost every car is good now. We hit this point probably, I don't know, I'll arbitrarily pick a number. Or a date, and say mid 2000s. Yeah, maybe somewhere in there. Cars just stopped being bad.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're probably actually closer to right. It's probably around 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. All cars just got good.
Mhm.
Like the interiors got good, the features got good, everything had like a rear view.
Performance, efficiency.
Yeah, they all had rear view cameras, they all had park assist, or I mean not all of them, but that was pretty common that all of those features that were absolute premium features, like Mercedes features, suddenly came to the masses. And so from then on, it's been hard to buy a bad car.
Yeah.
I mean, you can. I've rented plenty of bad car. But like, okay, so this last 2 weeks ago, I guess, I don't remember where I am in time, I went and rented the cheapest thing that was on the Enterprise lot at the time, just walking up to the counter, and I rented a Chrysler Pacifica.
Okay, I've rented one of those too.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's great, especially if you're traveling in a group. That's like the perfect car.
The interior was great. The stereo was great. The camera was great. The stereo sounded amazing. Like,
drove well.
Yeah, like, got good fuel economy. Like, everything was good about this vehicle. And this was the cheapest thing that Enterprise had on its lot. So it's hard to get a bad vehicle at this point, but you can with EVs if all of a sudden you can't charge it. You know, if it's only doing marginally better than level 2 at its peak, which I don't really know if any cars do that anymore. But that was the case not too long ago, is that you could get stuff that was...
Well, or as per my experience of, about a month ago, is just even finding a place that, even trying to find a charging station that actually works. I mean...
Yeah.
So...
But that gets to a whole other conversation of manufacturers trying to work with companies, whether or not they should be making their own charging stations or whether they should be partnering with other companies and making a consortium. Yeah.
Like Guyana or whatever.
Yeah. What is the correct answer there? Obviously, Tesla seems to be the best for what's working right now, but whether or not that's the best in the long term, I don't know. It's certainly not the best for the long term for the consumers to have one company own the entire ecosystem. Generally, and I say that recording this on a Mac, generally it's a bad thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I think Tesla's been doing it long enough that they have a vested interest in maintaining the uptime, the reliability, and the experience because it is a viable part of their business. Whereas I think earlier on, I mean, you think about the kind of the fallout of the Dieselgate scandal, and that basically was the creation of Electrify America. Effectively, they were relying on a lot of federal money initially to do this. And then once that money kind of ran out, it seems like their enthusiasm for the whole thing just kind of like, I don't know if we care about this quite as much anymore. Whereas Tesla, at that point, had already built it up to a point where it's like, this is a major line item in our quarterly reports. And this is a big P&L, center. And so we want to keep this uptime, reliability, experience, because this is, a core part of our business. So, building out EV infrastructure is very tedious and expensive. So, I mean, I get why a lot of it is crappy, but it still doesn't excuse it,
Many years ago, I was on an airplane with for a company that I used to work for, and the boss was there. And he was complaining about the Wi-Fi. And he had booted up his laptop and he was, typing away. And he couldn't, on the airplane, we're 35,000 feet and doing 500 miles an hour. And he's like, this isn't working. And it's not, he can't stream like the race that he wanted to stream, something like that. And I said, your signal is going to space and coming back. Like, give it time. Give it a little leeway. This is amazing that you can even do.
And we're going 600 miles an hour.
Yeah, this is amazing that you can even do that. And he said, yeah, but I'm paying for this. It should work. They've sold me on this item. I have paid my money, and they now need to deliver on this. And that kind of goes to EVs of their, like, Electrify America, and everybody sells you on, well, we've got this infrastructure. And then you show up and it doesn't work, or it doesn't charge at the rate that it should charge. And on one hand, it's amazing what they can do. But on the other hand, they have made a promise and they are not fulfilling on the promise. And that's where the supercharger network excels, is they always seem to fulfill on what they say, generally speaking.
Even to the point now, and I don't know if this has been the case for a while and I just haven't noticed till recently, it will tell me as I'm pulling into the station which stations are out of order. and it
That's
will
cool.
say like 4C non-functional or C issue reported. So
So just
I'll
imagine
even,
if for some
yeah.
of these others, if it did that and you come in and it's like, bring, order.
Yeah. So, that's, I mean, honestly, I think that's the level it needs to be for people. Honestly, I think I'm just going to keep hammering on this. I really think it's the charging infrastructure and experience that's the biggest obstacle for people. I think a lot of people that drive EVs, they're like, wow, this thing's quick and it's quiet and, drives nice and this and that. But the charging experience is just a huge turnoff. And a lot of times if they had it on a lease, they'll just turn it back in and say, I don't want another one. Or, um, you know, you reminded me of your friend that bought that Lexus RZ and thought her only option was to just plug it into her wall outlet, which will take like 40 hours for a
Yeah.
full charge.
So she
so
never drives more than like 100 miles, or no, it wasn't even that, like 80 miles or something away from her house, because she needs to be able to make the round trip. She's never, last I talked to her, she'd never level 3 charged.
Mm-hmm.
She'd never, I don't even know if she like
upgraded
level
to
2
240
charged
volt. Yeah.
at a destination charger.
Mm-hmm.
She just operated on, I'm going to plug this in outside my house.
Yeah. Which, is an option. And it's funny. I've read a lot of blogs by, bloggers, journalists, influencers that don't have 240 volt at home. And I think it's almost kind of like a Stockholm syndrome of like, they've tried to self-justify how great 120 is. I'm here to tell you, it's really not. If you can do 240 at home, do it. It's much better.
Yeah,
But,
I honestly have no idea how you would do it. Several years ago, I think I had the Nero EV, and I've got 240 at my house, but I decided that I would plug in 120, and it was going to take like 4 days or something ridiculous to charge the vehicle. I don't remember what it was. So I operated like I was at a apartment complex, and I went, and there's a mile from me, it was a level 2 charger, and so I went, threw my bicycle in the back and level 2 charged the thing, and like 7 hours later it was full, and then I rode my bike back there, and it was really just a pain in the butt. Ultimately, you could do it, but it was kind of a pain. The level 3 is a necessity if you don't have off-street parking and level 2 charging at your residence. The level 3 is a requirement. Ubiquitous level 3 is an absolute requirement just for these to even start to take off. For things to take off exponentially, you need to get the people that don't have off-street parking. You need to get the apartment dwellers. And even around here, this guy around the corner from me bought a Cybertruck, and he street parks it. He's got a house, but he street parks it. And I don't know the story behind why.
Because he has too many other cars, or what?
I'm guessing. But the Cybertruck lives on the street, and I never see a cord going to that. So he is living off of superchargers, I would guess. So
or he's got workplace charging or whatever.
Yeah, it could be that too. I don't know the guy. I mean, he's around the corner from me.
Okay,
I don't like people, so I don't talk to them.
So let's go to this fantasy world where public EV charging is like a solved problem. Like, it's ubiquitous, it's reliable. That's no longer an issue. That aside, in your mind, what do you think it will take to make EVs go mainstream and people to have confidence, and for them to start selling without tax incentives, where people will just organically, naturally start buying them, and it'll kind of hit that tipping point where, you'll kind of see the hockey stick?
Well, I think there's 2 factors. One of them was something that you just said, which is no government incentives. I think you need to take away the argument that the right has generally been saying, which is, don't force this on me. You've got to stop forcing it on people. And you've got to kind of put the ability to produce an EV affordably and
profitably.
A good one, and profitably, you got to put that on the companies. So I don't disagree with getting rid of the incentives. I don't know if now is the time to get rid of them. I don't know that deep into this process, but I think getting rid of that argument of don't force your EVs on me. Well, we're not. There's no incentives. Sure, we're giving incentives to the oil companies, but they seem to be cool with that. But I think getting rid of those and then put the I can't think of the word, but put the requirement basically on GM, Ford, Hyundai, Honda.
Onus.
Yeah, onus. There you go. The onus.
Ding, ding, ding.
It's oh, God. I was about to say it's like a weenus, but a little bit different.
Yeah. No, I mean, and to be clear, I'm not, I don't want to be one of these like socialist killjoys that say nobody should have a fast EV or this and that. I don't think that should be the focus for mainstream models. If someone wants to pay 100,000 plus and get a Plaid or a Sapphire or, a Taycan, turbo, hey, go for it. Enjoy, impress all your friends, whatever. But I don't think most people really care about that.
No, well, the other item that I would say is for mainstream adoption is exactly what they care about, which is price. Price is going to sell them. So if you've got ubiquitous charging and you've got generally 250 to 300 mile range on all EVs, and they all charge generally well, if you get rid of the argument of don't force this on me, and then you say, and you can buy one for 30 grand, which is equivalent to the ICE version, or at least one for that, then I think you're going to get a lot more adoption. And I think that there is a big market for slow EVs if they are efficient and affordable. And the people that say, oh, well, all of them are fast. You don't pick up efficiency by making something slower is an argument that I've heard. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I find it hard to believe that some kind of efficiency, whether it's in actual motor efficiency, like miles per kilowatt or kilowatt hour, or if it's efficiency in production, like you can wind a motor cheaper.
Manufacturing,
yeah.
Okay.
If you can make it cheaper and thus you can make the price cheaper, if you're not building something like with RC cars, that was definitely the case. You would get hand wound, tightly wound, 9-turn motors versus those would be very expensive versus machine wound like 15-turn motors that were significantly less expensive. And so I've got to believe that it's still the case and would apply to cars. But at the same time, I do think that there's a market for the ultra high end, the 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds, and I think that's where you also get into the market of pushing the limits of charging. Like wasn't it Yang Wang something that we talked
U9
about?
Extreme
that was like 1,200 volts. Great,
3,000 horsepower.
Yeah, and get the 1,200 volt thing that can charge at 900 kilowatts. Like do that there, and that will help hopefully create the technology and bring the price down. And so you have the multimillionaires that are owning those vehicles that then are essentially funding the little people like me.
Yeah. And just kind of going back to, you were talking about basically having the ICE and EV equivalents side by side. I think what will be the big tipping point is when you have that price parity between those two models, and the EV model is demonstrably superior. Is like if you have them side by side for essentially the same price, the EV model, even if styling wise it looks about the same, let's say the ICE model 0 to 60, let's say 9 seconds, EV 7 seconds, about the same range. But EV has a frunk, the ICE model doesn't, obviously. That there's a lot of these little like surprise and delight kind of Easter eggs on the EV model that make it that much more compelling, to the point where people would be like, why would I buy this one? It's kind of a piece of crap. It's like you have to make so many compromises. It's not quick. It's not very practical. It's just kind of outdated technology. And people say, well, of course I'm going to get this,
And I think, so we always talk about new car sales, and I don't know what the numbers are, but used car sales are exponentially larger than any kind of new car sale at all. And I think that another thing that would make a tipping point in all of this is as used EVs go on the market and they're affordable and they are the good second generation of EVs, that they are post 2020, I guess. Randomly pick a date, that things got good. We've now got, if you went to Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and all of a sudden you're choosing between a Model 3, an Ioniq 6, Mach-E, you're choosing between these modern EVs, and they're used and they cost $12,000 each. And you look at a ICE vehicle that's used and it's about the same price. So the same kind of deal is what you're saying, price parity. And then you go, you know what? These are actually modern, nice, new vehicles. if you wanted something, I haven't priced them out now, but if you wanted something like in that range just a handful of years ago, you were looking at the Kona, the Nero, the old Bolt, and they're just
The old
not.
Leaf, yeah.
Yeah, and the Leaf, yeah, especially the Leaf. Pick those up for like $3,000, but they only go 40 miles because they're down to like 2 bars on them. Yeah, those are just awful. Don't buy a used Leaf, guys.
Yeah.
I nearly did. It would have been a very bad mistake. So I think the used market also works into this equation of that, but it seems so volatile right now. The used market was like crazy. I mean, remember just coming out of the pandemic, your Model 3 was selling for more than new ones.
Yeah, it was insane. And now it's like, I don't even want to talk about resale right now, but
I'm just waiting to buy yours. I am waiting for it to hit rock bottom, and then I buy your Model 3 because you're the sucker that did all the upgrades on the thing.
And if you're lucky, I'll upgrade to the LFP pack. Then you'll have a perfect car.
Hey, there you go. I'll take it. I love LFP. That's also the future of VVs, but that's a whole different conversation.
One of the futures, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with how many points are on here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 points for what I think is the formula for the perfect mainstream EV. So you want me to unpack that?
Yeah, go for it. And I'll disagree with all of them.
Okay. So number 1, price $35,000 or less. You could make the case $30,000 or less.
Yeah. I would love the average selling price of a new vehicle right now is like $48,000.
Yeah.
It's probably higher than that at this point. That was like a couple of years ago. It was like 48,500, something like that. So 35 is low.
And I would say for 35, well equipped, not a strippo like one at this price kind of teaser.
Yeah, I think
35, decently equipped.
Yeah, I think 35 decently equipped. Yeah, I'm with you on that. 29 for your strippo.
Yeah,
somewhere on there.
Exactly. 0 to 60. Maybe this, I know we just talked about 7 seconds. I think 7 seconds is acceptable, but if you want just a little bit of the wow factor, I would say 6 seconds or below.
What's your Model 3? You've got an SR Plus. And it's got to be right in that range. Isn't it like high fives or something?
When it was rated new, it was rated 5.3. I think the newer LFP models are 5.8. That's only because they're a little bit heavier, but
yours is
plenty quick.
Way more than most people need.
Yeah. No, I have no complaints about the performance. It's absolutely quick enough. So maybe sub 6 seconds, a little ambitious. I'm going to say sub 7. How about we say that?
I think that's safe.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'd say 350 mile range.
It's funny because you say that, and I think 300, yeah, that's what it needs to be. And you say then 350, and I'm like, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
So somewhere in there
I'd
for
say
whatever reason, my mind says 300 is necessary. 350 is too much.
Yeah.
So I think you're in the right range.
Well, let's just call it 300. I'm going to say 10 to 80% fast charging in less than 20 minutes.
If they could hit 15, so I have timed myself on my road trips and granted, this is not equal to equal, but timed myself on a road trip where I pull over from exiting the freeway to entering the freeway, filling up a gas-powered vehicle, 15 minutes. Pretty much like clockwork. But that involves driving to the gas station, which is usually right, you're on the interstates, so it's like the gas station is right there.
It's right there, yeah.
And with EVs, that's may or may not be.
It's kind of getting there, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, depending on where you are. So if you said it's 15 minutes, it's actually probably 20 from pulling off to pulling on.
Yeah.
I think if you could get it to about 15 minutes for 10 to 80% charge, I think that would be
okay. Fair enough.
That would be pretty good.
And I don't think that's a pie in the sky goal either. I think that's achievable.
This goes back to spend the money on charging efficiency and range efficiency, and you can get there. Stop cramming these like crazy acceleration cars down our throats and trying to convince us that that's what we need. We don't need that. And in fact, when my kids start driving, I don't want that. Like, that's ridiculous. Can you imagine you hand your kid something that's faster than a Hellcat? And you're like, here, go learn how to drive. It's not necessary. Yeah. It's unsafe. You need slower vehicles. And like, when my in-laws were driving, last thing they needed was anything faster than the Avalon that they had. Yeah. You need slower vehicles. It is a public safety issue.
And actually, some of the later, I don't think the one they had was quite this new, but even some of the later model Avalons were 300 horsepower. So anyway, moving on. I would say comfortable seating for 4 to 5 adults. I think that's kind of, for a mass market car, that's just kind of table stakes.
Yep.
And then I think I'm going to name kind of a minimum cargo capacity of 20 cubic feet with the seats up and 45 plus with the seats down. Whether or not you want to include a frunk with that, I don't think a frunk is not as altogether necessary, but I see a frunk as kind of a surprise and delight item. I think it's a cool to have. I think it's something that would get people's attention. If it didn't, I don't think it would necessarily be a deal killer. But I think more and more people may be conditioned to expect that with EVs, because there's like, well, it doesn't have an engine. Why can't, Tesla has this or the Lightning has this.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of disappointing frunks in my life. So just because it's got it doesn't mean it's
true.
Gonna be
I
useful.
mean, true. I hear what you're saying, but it's, the EVs that don't have it, like you and I have both watched the Monroe Live videos when they start, tearing the cars apart and doing reverse engineering. Usually the reason they don't have frunks is just kind of lazy engineering. Like they didn't really optimize the architecture, the, cooling system, steering system, whatever. They just kind of took whatever was off the shelf and shoved it in there and said, oh, well, we don't have room for a frunk. Whereas if they really focused on having that as a feature, they could have easily done it, but they decided not to. So.
Yeah.
Anyway. And then, I think this is kind of, obvious now, but I think, it's what sells. I would say crossover. I would prefer more of a wagon type form, but
Of course you would.
Of course I would.
Yeah. But we
But
know
even
on the
those are
history in
kind of-
America, wagons don't sell. So
But
that's a
even
pipe
there, I think the form factor is kind of morphing a little bit, where there are some crossovers that are a little lower slung,
dream.
that are a little more wagonish.
We're almost going to end up at the liftback.
Yeah, which I
That's-
wouldn't be mad about, because
Yeah.
I like liftbacks too.
Yeah.
I'd say they're half sibling to the wagon. But I mean, like case in point, like I know a lot of people call the EV6 a crossover. I'd almost say it's almost more of a wagon or liftback. And I kind of dig the EV6. I kind of like the looks and the packaging and stuff.
Yeah.
Price wise, it's still not quite at our target price. But Kia's got the Hyundai Group in general have a lot of EVs coming out in the next couple of years that I think are probably going to tick almost all these boxes. So, and they're not the only ones. I think you're going to see it from a lot of companies.
Yeah. I think kind of, to me, what you've described in there is if they could hit the price point, which I don't think they do, is the Polestar 2.
Yeah, Polestar 2, I think you're looking at new at least like 45 plus.
Yeah. But that hits like minus the price. That kind of hits all the things. It's a looker. It's not bad in any respect. So I think we're nearly there. I think on your list that exists. The only thing that doesn't exist in that is the price tag. And I don't know how we get there.
I'm gonna throw out.
Well, now we've lost the EV incentives, many of them, federal ones anyway. And a lot of the car companies that are not just EVs, so like the Fords and GMs, have lost any incentive to go make EVs. And so the development is slowing down, which when the development slows down, the price is not going to drop because you're not going to see the advances happen that get the efficiency of manufacturing. So I think had we kept the incentives and the push for EVs, that what you've listed
for a couple more years.
I think it's further away than what it was just 2 years ago.
Yes and no, but I think enough things are in the works or in motion. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna throw out another number. I think whether it's calendar or model year, I think 2027, you're going to see some models that basically will hit almost all of these. Close on the price, maybe not quite 30K, but
yeah,
I'd say 30 to 34 and hit all the rest of these. And one thing we haven't seen the official specs on yet is the second gen Bolt. which GM is really hyping up.
Yeah, no, they're killing it. They're killing everything in order to just hang their.
Yeah. And also the new Ford, modular, the whole whiz bang thing that Jim Farley was talking about. I mean, they've certainly set a high bar for themselves, whether they can fulfill that. But I want to say 2027, 28, you're going to, I think if that's not the tipping point, I think it'll be close to it. I think.
Ooh, tipping point.
Maybe I'm off.
Yeah.
So.
I think we've got a long way to go to hit like the big tipping point. A long way to go. And a lot of that is just simply price based. On the used market, on the new market, you need the EVs to be very affordable and at least comparable in almost every respect. And I think we're a little bit away from that. And we talked about it the other week that they sell EVs in there. So 300 miles is what you're saying is like the ideal EV. But then we're talking last week before, whatever, that there was, whatever company it was doing like a range extended something version with a gasoline engine, and they were going to advertise 600 miles per tank. There's a long way to go before you get to that parity, because if it's the same price and I go, oh, on one I can go 300 miles and it takes me 20 minutes to recharge, and the other one could go 600 miles and it takes me 5 to 10 minutes to
fill
fuel.
the tank.
There's a big disparity between those two. And those two are not going to join. And my argument in the other episode was the automotive world and that particular manufacturer doing themselves a disservice by even making a 600-mile vehicle when they know that they're going to go EV eventually and that they can never match 600 miles in an EV, not with the technology that we've got now. And the new technology is always, just around the corner. It's like the new battery technology is like hydrogen. It's the future and it always will be.
But
the new battery technology is not going to come in and suddenly double our mileage.
Well, but okay, the counterpoint to that is when 240-volt home charging becomes basically it's pretty much in the code for new construction. I think in California, I think across most of the country now.
Well, they can do it in California because how many new houses do they build out here?
Yeah. But, once that becomes expected, I don't know at that point if 600-mile range is going to be that big of a deal, especially if it's just like a around town car. If it's a 2-car household, what I kind of see probably, I'd say for the next decade, is a 2-car household, one of them being a pure battery EV and one being a PHEV or hybrid for road trips. I see that possibly becoming a more, predominant pattern.
Interesting you mentioned that. One of my friends has a Polestar 2, and they've got a Volvo something crossover, gas powered. And they got the gas vehicle because he was going to have to go into LA fairly regularly and commute into the office. And then stuff happened, and now he no longer needs to commute in. And they're going to get rid of the SUV, I believe. And I'm not actually sure how that works because they've also got a camper, and that's what they pull it with. But the idea is that they're going to get rid of that because they only need the around-the-town vehicle. Maybe their plans to rent a truck or something when they need to go camping. I don't know. But it's interesting because they've got the choice now. They're like, well, we're spending so much money on 2 vehicles. We really only need one. And they're going to keep the EV of the 2. And this was, I believe, their first EV.
Well, maybe they looked at fueling costs, and especially in California. I mean, even with the electricity rates we have, it's still quite a bit cheaper to,
well,
do
and they've got
EVs
solar.
So, I mean, so it's basically free energy for them. Yeah. Potentially. Yeah.
And they largely don't even drive anywhere because they've all got e-bikes and they just ride their bicycles everywhere. So it's just an interesting case there where it was exactly what you were saying of, you've got these 2 vehicles. And in that case, they do one for long distance, one for short distance, and they're choosing to just go with the short distance vehicle. So maybe you're more right than you know.
Time will tell.
Yeah. Isn't that what they always say? Time will tell. And time will tell. I think that's it.
You might see this show up in little shorts here and there. That's the goal. That was one of the goals of transitioning to this platform. But
we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. Until next time.
All right. I will talk to you whenever I talk to you. Bye-bye.